Morning, everyone. This is the Tuesday, December 14th, 2021 meeting of the Planning, Resources and Development Committee. I can see by our screen that we have a quorum. So the call of the roll is in order. Approval of the minutes from November 16th.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
I'll second
it.
Gary seconds it. Any discussion, corrections? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Carries. Okay, thanks, everybody. Number 4, public comments. Do we have any public comment, Tom or Krista?
No, none were received.
Okay. We do not have a public hearing today. We have a short meeting today. Staff reports, then let's go through them, see if we have any questions or comments, starting with the registered deeds report. Heather?
Good morning, everyone. I don't really have anything to add other than if you scroll down, Tom, you can see our revenues have far exceeded our budgeted amounts, so that's a good sign. We're at over 100,000 above what we had projected for revenue, so that's good news. And yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I? It's not a question, Krista, I mean, Heather, and it applies to the other staff too. We may not make many comments on here, but when you don't get comments, that just means things are you're doing a really good job. And I recognize that, but even when we don't have something to say. So thank you for the work you guys do.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll pass that along to my staff as well. And I also want to say Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas. Mr.
Merry
Chairman,
Christmas.
I have a couple
Yes.
of questions, if I may.
Diane?
2 questions, Heather, and I second what Mike said. Thank you always for the good, complete, helpful report and your good work. So when you get these transfers of $500,000 or more, is that what is that all commercial property? What is that?
Some are, not always. I mean, we have homes that are valued at 500,000 or more in the county. So, I mean, I can certainly drill that down more for you. But yeah, I don't always like to just put that out there in the public reports, but it's public record. So you can certainly, give us a call and we can give out that information. But
Okay.
in general that, the majority is probably commercial property, or just large land transfers too. I mean, if the land values are high, but it has been homes, it's been all of the above, I guess, land, homes,
Okay,
and
interesting.
commercial.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I sort of tend to think that we don't have a lot of that kind of property. So I was sort of struck by it.
Yeah, and too, sometimes, it can be confusing too when sometimes there's a transfer from, one business entity to another holding company, and they have to pay that transfer tax. So sometimes things aren't actually changing hands completely, but the name is changing, our holding company is taking over. So that is sometimes commercial property is transferred like that, but in essence, the tenant remains the same.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Okay, and second question, the condominium legislation on which you provided testimony, do we know about that? At least I don't.
Yeah, so it's basically some cleanup language in the condominium legislation. So the condominiums are obviously recorded with us, and some of the language in the statutes is just unclear. So we get a variety, everybody interprets it different. So every attorney is submitting something a little bit different. And so this is just kind of to streamline the process and make sure everybody's on the same page. And then also there's always some confusion with bylaws for condominiums. And our association was, the Register of Deeds Association was just concerned that people don't have access to their bylaws. And within this legislation, it's going to be that bylaws are actually provided to buyers of condominiums so that they are familiar with you know, the setup of the condominium and so forth. So basically cleanup language, but it's been ongoing. It's been in the works for a couple of years. They ran out of time, you know, last session, so they weren't able to get this through. So it's kind of it's been ongoing for a couple of years, but it's farther through the process now. So we're hoping to get it finalized through this session. So
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment.
Sure.
My son and I both own quite a bit of property, real estate. And there's also, you know, of that property, there's some like, you know, smaller chunks of 5, 10, 15 acres. And we both have got separate transactions from some company in Minnesota, Minneapolis, that sends out a letter with the property, you know, description, and they already got a purchase agreement already made out and the price already laid down, and all you gotta do is just sign it and send back. But you know, the price that they're offering is only like, you know, $1,100 an acre. So I don't know if it's almost like a scam, but they're going after these you know, just like small parcels. And the purchase agreement is already made out. That's happened to both of us in the last month. So I
You
just
know-
thought I'd let you know about that.
yeah, it's just companies, you know, I would fully investigate that before you sign any paperwork or anything. Obviously,
No.
you said you don't recognize that the values aren't quite what you would want it to be
No.
anyways, but yeah, I've had some people comment that they've received letters of that nature, but yeah, I'm not fully familiar with what companies are out there doing that.
No, they went right in the wastebasket.
Pardon?
He said it went right in the wastebasket.
Yeah, right in the wastebasket.
I assume so, but yeah, yeah.
So it does sound like that's not an illegal thing to do, but it may be, as Gary said, intended to take advantage of people in a way by sort of misleading them, and I don't know, in some ways misleading them. I wonder, is there any, in situations like that, Heather, do we ever do any kind of heads up to the community of, you know, we're seeing this sort of activity, and that's not illegal, but just be aware that you're to protect your own interests, ever?
You know, we haven't done anything of that nature, but I mean, it's not a bad idea. I think that's coming. Yeah, I'm not sure who that's coming from. We kind of get involved on the side of things where you know, we've talked about this in the past too with property fraud and so forth. The property fraud alert system that we have in place where you can, you know, sign up so that if something gets recorded under your name in the county, that you're notified of that. Not that you shouldn't be already, if you're, you know, involved in a real estate transaction, you should be fully aware of that. But there is a property fraud alert notification system that we offer, but never to the degree if you're receiving offers for, you know, to purchase your real estate, that you should
Yeah, okay.
yeah, check into this.
Well, I wonder if, I mean, if someone decides to sell their property through to one of these businesses, you'll have that record, and you could notice if it's becoming a obvious thing that we need to try to draw attention to, we can catch it then perhaps.
Yeah, we're, you know, I always say we're the last to know, you know, that it's all in the works, and then we don't see it till it's all drawn up and done, and then we're kind of the final step in the process. But yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, Heather. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on then. Environmental services. Tom?
I don't have anything additional. I guess I'll maybe just make a point. Our pickup truck, I reported last month sold for $3,350. Unfortunately, the high bidder was unable to come up with the finances, so it had to be relisted. And then the second round of bidding brought slightly less, $3,150, still quite a bit more than what we were anticipating. So I don't have anything additional to add unless there's any questions.
Any questions? I'd note that Tom was able to get the land division ordinance on the board agenda for tomorrow, I believe, right?
Yes.
And so we'll hopefully get that taken care of a little earlier than we thought we would. Any other questions?
Yeah, Tom, Mr. Chair, I have a question. Having to do with the corners that you've done in some of the towns, the 16 corners. How many corners are there in each town?
In a theoretical township, which is a town and range number. Now, some of our political or civil townships spill into multiple congressional townships, but a congressional township created in the original government land office survey, there's 133 corners in each township. Mhm.
So you have quite a ways to go in the county then yet.
There are roughly about 3,000 corners total in the county. Yeah. I mean, most of them have monuments it's just we haven't visited them for quite a while. The goal nowadays is to put accurate coordinates on them as well. So, I mean, the county visited some of these 3,000 corners back in the 80s, early 90s, before GPS was out. We don't have coordinates on some of those corners. And of course, some of the corners we've determined were not set properly. You have to remember, PLSS, Public Land Survey System corners, can be set and established by the county surveyor's office, but also the private land or private surveyors working in the county also are licensed to remonument these corners. And again, these corners were set originally in the 1800s, 1848 to 1852 here in Dunn County. They were wood posts, and the goal now is to visit all those corners and get better monuments put in place and remonument the positions, put GPS coordinates on, and the work is being done by all the surveyors that work in the county. Unfortunately, we find some of the work that was done years ago was not done properly. Evidence was missed, landowner testimony wasn't taken into consideration. So our job is to get all these corners back in where we believe their original location was from that original government land office survey. So yeah, it's a huge undertaking. And every year,
how far are you in this undertaking? How many is left of the 3,000 plus?
Right, I'm going from memory. I put together a report, and actually be in our land information council meeting this Wednesday, tomorrow. There'll be more information on that, but I don't want to throw a number out and have it be misrepresented, but it's well above 80% of the county has monuments at the corners. Now, corners we've actually been to and have GPS coordinates on, I'm unsure of that number at this point, but when you look at a map of the monuments in the county, there's very few corners in the county that don't have modern day monuments at them.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tom, one question.
Yes.
So what happens on a bad corner location if there's been several, surveys done for different property owners? How can they get them back straight? Does that have to go back to the court because the monument was in the wrong location?
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate when we have surveys done from an erroneous location. I guess it depends on the nature of the survey, where the survey is related or located in relation to the corner, the erroneous corner. Sometimes the impact is very minimal. Other times it can be be great, right? I mean, you carve out a 5-acre piece and then find out 10 years later, one of your controlling corners that you started from is incorrect. And now the neighbor has his survey done and there's either a gap or an overlap. I guess in my mind, if you've got a certified survey map prepared, it's been recorded, you've been paying taxes on it for a substantial amount of time, your boundaries are fixed on that parcel. That's what you own, it's what you took title to. And the surveys going forward will have to address that gap or that overlap. So it can get messy. I don't have a canned answer for you, Gary. This is the flow chart you follow. Every situation has to be analyzed and dealt with on its own merits.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, let's go on then.
Mike Kinnear here. I'm
Okay,
sorry, I
Mike,
was
yeah.
pressing the wrong. Tom Carlson, could you just remind us briefly what the difference is between a map of survey and a certified survey map is?
Yes, so by county ordinance, certified survey maps are required anytime a new parcel is created under 20 acres or the remnant parcel drops below 20. So if I have 25 acres that I own and I want to carve out a 10-acre parcel, the 10-acre parcel is going to require a CSM by ordinance. The remaining 15 acres is also going to require mapping as a certified survey map because both parcels, the one I'm creating and the one that I'm left with, are both under 20 acres. So that's typically when a certified survey map is done. Maps of survey are typically done on either existing parcels of land. So say I own 40 acres. Gary Bjork, you have a 40-acre parcel in the town of Colfax and you're having some trouble with one of your neighbors. There's no fences. Nobody really knows everybody has an idea where the property corners are, but nobody knows for sure. You hire a surveyor to come out and set your 440 corners. They're not going to do a certified survey map on that, although they could. There's no reason to do a certified survey map on it. They would do what's called a map of survey. So that is the difference. Maps of survey are typically done on parcels that are over 20 acres or are already existing, or people want points put online. Somebody has a certified survey map of a 5-acre parcel and one of the property lines is 1,000 feet long, goes over some hills through the woods across a river. They can't see from one end to the other, so they hire a surveyor to put some extra pipe or points online. They're required to file a map, put it in the public record. That would be a map of survey. They're not going to you can't do a certified survey map of just a line. It has to be a parcel. So expanding on that, certified survey maps by statute get recorded at the Register of Deeds office, okay? And they create new parcels upon recordation. They get assigned a new PIN number, tax ID number. Maps of survey do not get recorded at the Register of Deeds office. I suppose they could be recorded as an exhibit attached to another document, but they, in and of themselves, that document, the map of survey, doesn't get recorded at the Register of Deeds office. But it does get filed in the county surveyor's office. And by Wisconsin Administrative Code requires a surveyor, anytime they complete a property survey, they have to file a true and correct copy in the office of the county surveyor within 60 days. So both maps are in the public record. Only the certified survey maps get recorded, and typically they're creating new parcels. Maps of survey are done for all other purposes, setting additional points online, maybe setting just 140 corner, retracing existing property lines, things like that. And both, the point I really want to stress, because so many people think, well, I have a map of survey, it's not as good as a certified survey map. A certified survey map is held to a higher standard. And while CSMs do have more technical standards, both maps are still certified by a professional licensed land surveyor. And if something would go to court, they're equally as important. Each map has a surveyor certificate, the surveyor certifying that the work shown on the map is true and correct to the best of their knowledge and belief. So both maps are certified. It's just one is called a certified survey map, which is kind of misleading in my opinion. Does that help answer the question? Maybe I got into it way more than I should have, but it's all very clear to me. It's just a lot of times to the lay person, it can be confusing. And the part I really see the most is the name certified survey map. So many people, I've already had people say, well, I'm willing to pay more to have it certified. Well, and we're talking about a map, a survey that they just had prepared. And I said, you really don't need to have a certified survey map on it. What you have is a certified map. So it is confusing, but both maps are in the public record.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, I was muted. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on. Chase?
Yeah, I don't, morning, everyone. I don't really have anything else to add other than, this is another busy time of year as it is for everyone, trying to wrap up things for the previous year and get things set for the coming year. Most of our work, a lot of our work is tied to grants, and you may notice that in our financial budget report, just the amount of grants that we have yet to receive, which they're in the works. All that process usually takes place here in the last month of the year or the first month of the following year. So be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Any questions for Chase?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Jim first.
Thank you. Chase, yesterday, I had a CR&T meeting, and one of the things that we brought up was under the rural tourism, people were asking, and our county board chair, I think, was one of them, was how we could get a hold of the updated maps for all of these trails. And then what we will be doing, we'll be putting it on a website for Dunn County Rural Tourism. With the proper way to go, the county board supervisor that I have in charge of that is Jim Zons. With the proper way to get this information in these mappings for their current to go to you, Chase, and get that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So there's a couple of different points there. We have requests quite frequently for our GIS database, where private companies will request our information so they could create a number of apps for snowmobilers to download on their phone and have the trail map available to them at all times. So there's a version that we can provide either through our office and in consultation with Land Information, get GIS or the database files for that type of trail. The other option is, depending on the sophistication level that you'd like, just a basic map to post on a website. We could help facilitate that, but that would typically come through the Dunn County Snowmobile Association. So they're
all right,
the main leaders in that. But if you'd like to have Supervisor Zons reach out to us, we can help facilitate that request.
Thank you, Chase. That's exactly what we'll be doing, and that way we can keep it very current. A lot of the maps we're looking at right now, we know are outdated, and we don't want to put anything on our Zoom that is outdated. So thank you, Chase.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
A question for Chase here. In your first paragraph, Chase, I see you have things coming up for next year. So these are actual items, new manure storage facilities, abandonment, all that. Those are actual items that are coming up, not just theoretical.
Right. So those are landowners that we've been working with, over the last year or two on projects, and we've identified some necessary conservation practices that both us and them, those individuals view are important and may assist in compliance with various requirements. And due to us having all of our cost share funds allocated for 2021, a lot of those projects will get, have to wait until 2022 to receive any cost share assistance. So yeah, we're excited that we have a number of cost share practices lined up. We still do have some cost share money available for 2022 yet. We're hoping to seal that up here soon. It's a good feeling for us when we know we have our money allocated early on in the year, because it kind of helps us plan for the future a little bit better. We get a little bit more nervous when we don't have projects lined up and we get towards the end of a calendar year and we need to kind of scramble for where to put those funds, or we lose them, which typically isn't the case, very rarely, but it's always a good feeling to have stuff lined up at the beginning of the year.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to comment, Chase, that I was really pleased to see that there are some new farmers in the nutrient management plan class. So good on you for recruiting those farmers. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And a lot of it goes to our staff here. They're the ones with the boots on the ground. And this year with COVID restrictions, the in-person classes are going to be limited, if at all, as a large group. So our staff here, particularly Travis Dreyer, will be working individually with all of those landowners to develop those plans. So yeah, that's a good feeling as well. We got interest.
Okay, any other questions? Thanks, Chase.
Thank you.
The next item is the planning and zoning. Ann, you're on. Any additions or comments?
I don't have any additions or any comments, but I can answer any questions if anybody has them.
Great to see you have a new staff person on.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Any questions for Ann?
Yes, I do. I see a comment on the new staff member. What position is Tracy actually taking, and is Michelle back working? 2 questions.
So her position is the zoning enforcement officer slash planner, and Michelle is back, and she's been back for a little while now. So they've been working together quite a bit.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
Next item is the cost share contract. Chase, I guess this is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. So this, I'm not sure if this has come before this committee in the past, but we felt it was probably appropriate to just discuss and give you an update on the status of our 2021 cost share fund. So if you had a chance to read through this item in the packet, basically we have cost share dollars that are set aside as part of our grant through the Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection. We have those allocated in full to participating landowners, like I mentioned earlier, whether it's for compliance requirements or other conservation practice needs. And from time to time, and it seems to be, it seems to happen more lately in the last few years, either due to weather restrictions or contractor availability, we tend to have situations where we need to extend those cost share funds into the following calendar year. Through DATCAP and through the grant process, we're allowed to extend cost share practices for 1 additional year. So these individuals that we have contracts with will need to complete those projects next year, or that money goes back to the state to be reissued out back to the counties in general. So this year we have several projects, 4 that are bond fund related. So those are practices that are considered hard practices like grade stabilization structures, manure storage abandonments, grassed waterways, things that you can actually maybe see on the land a little bit more visible. So we have 4 contracts in the amount of about $54,000, a little over $54,000. And then we have 1 segregated account contract, and that is funding for nutrient management planning through the segregated account in the state budget. And that's around $6,748. So we have basically 5 contracts that are we'll be requesting of DATCP to extend. And this report here today is just an FYI for you that we will be submitting those. And so on top of the cost share funds and practices we have scheduled for 2022, these will be added to that. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions? Chase, I have one, I guess. Thinking back to last year, you were working with a landowner on a manure storage problem that you determined was fairly significant and needed to be addressed. And I believe we had applied for funding, including funding from a special state fund, and it had not been granted. Do you know where we're at with that project at this point?
Certainly. So that farm currently has an application in for federal cost share dollars through the EQIP program. And so the EQIP funds, if that contract is awarded, would cost share a significant portion of those practices.
Great.
It likely won't cover everything. So you may see some of our 2022 cost share funds that we have allocated, we have yet to allocate, may go towards that farm to meet the rest of those needs. In a potential scenario, depending on weather and contractor availability and funding, you may not see anything in 2022, but maybe 2023 to finally kind of wrap up all those conservation practices. But the good news is things are moving forward, and we're hoping to address that in the future. If I might add a little more to that, we've had some feedback from Department of Natural Resources regarding the special fund, the TRIM grant or Target Runoff Management grant that we applied for and were not funded. The state has used our example on a statewide discussion about how to reevaluate and I guess review the ranking and scoring of these cost share funds. Several individuals felt like our application was a very good one, a very high priority a resource concern, and for some reason we missed the bar by about 4 points. So, you know, the question the state is asking is, why are good projects like this not being funded? And obviously there's a lot of restrictions and limitations associated with that, but the good news is that our example here in Dunn County is being talked about, and we may see some changes in the state grant program in the future because of it.
Thank you. That's encouraging news. Good work. Any other questions from anyone?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I might, this is more of an announcement to the rest of the committee, because Chase, I'll be getting a hold of you. Each year, I am on a committee with the Chamber of Commerce to help to make recommendations for their annual award of Farm Family of the Year. And each year I go back to Chase or his committee because the criteria is, if we recognize a farm family of the year in Dunn County, we want them to follow all the good practices that Chase regarding nutrient management, soil and water conservation, and everything on the farm, so that every other farmer can and every other citizen can say, yes, that farm family is practicing and doing all the things that we want to see in Dunn County. I share that with the committee so that you know that I will be contacting Chase in the next couple of weeks for a recommendation. And then I take that recommendation forward to the rest of the committee, and because they rely on the recommendation, we don't say it's Chase Cummings' person. We simply say we want a recommendation. And that goes to all the rest of the committee members. Gary Bjork out there, you know, farmers. And so I'm putting it out to you so that Jim Anderson can make a good recommendation for Farm Family of the Year at the annual Chamber banquet this year. And I think it's March. Just okay, Chase, if you'll be thinking about that. Thank you, Chairman Quinn. I just wanted to let everybody know about that.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That's good information to have. Okay, no other questions. Move on then. The next item is, I think it's from me. Yeah, this is a discussion of potential for organizing a one-time water quality testing initiative to establish a countywide baseline record of water quality status. That's a mouthful. So I put this on the agenda because I want to just raise it up for just awareness at first, and then potentially some investigation and possible discussion. We're a long ways from deciding whether this is something we want to consider or request, but to get the idea out there. And I know this is something that Chase and I have talked about this a little bit, and I know Chase has done some sort of initial framing of it with his staff. And the idea basically is that it would be really helpful if Dunn County had a one-time fairly comprehensive water quality testing project that established what the quality of groundwater is across the county as of a certain year or date in that year, so that in the future, when there's potentially more money available for testing programs, we at least have a baseline that we can compare that data to. Now, this is obviously, this doesn't fit into our budget, obviously. So I think practically speaking, would require us to ask for consideration of the use of some of our ARPA funds to pay for it. I don't have an idea about what that amount would be. I'm not completely sure that would be a allowable use of funds, although from what I've been told that other counties are doing with regard to conservation work, I think it was a pretty good chance that it would be. So I wanted to put it on the table to sort of have some discussion, gauge interest a little bit today. That's really the point of this. So I know, Chase, you and I talked about this a little bit. Do you have any thoughts about it?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit. It's kind of it's been on the back of my mind for quite some time since I've been here, as we work on our groundwater ad hoc committee recommendations and some of our other general groundwater work for the county. And funds are always limited for everything, but it's one of our internal intentions here would be to have some sort of a countywide groundwater monitoring program beyond just voluntary. It still would be voluntary, but beyond just the general acceptance of people who want to test their wells on their own. We would have a system set up where, in the event that we did have some funds, we could go to this plan, fall back on this plan and say, okay, here's how we're going to spend these funds in more of a strategic manner. My experience in my previous employment with Pepin County, we had a program set up where we were monitoring one private well in every government section in the county. We had some special funds set up to monitor between 1 and 2 townships every year. And Pepin County, being its size, had some opportunities to turn that over quite frequently, so that every 5 years we were going back to those same wells, testing those for the same parameters, and trying to just establish some better trend analysis throughout the county. I would envision a similar approach here for Dunn County, trying to while we could take an approach of prioritizing our watersheds or our certain areas of the county, I think to have a baseline data set that would try to be somewhat uniform across the county would be important. And we certainly could have the capacity set up where we could act in the event that we would have funds available. So my review of ARPA funds and in communication with some of my colleagues across the state, there does appear to be some opportunity there that we can take advantage of for public, but also private infrastructure regarding water quality. So we certainly would have to investigate that a little bit more to pin that down, but I think it's worth the conversation, and I appreciate the topic being brought up.
Thanks, Chase.
A question, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Gary. Sure.
for Chase. What is the status of those 4 or 5 wells that we had in southeastern Dunn County, mostly in Springbrook? Well, I haven't heard much about that lately. Could you give us a little update on that, on those well testing?
Yeah, are you referring to the groundwater quantity, so the elevation of the groundwater, or is it specific contamination or quality type wells?
It's mostly on those wells that were being tested. I think it was just on the amount of water or the water level of it. Is that still ongoing or?
Yep, that's still going. So we have, I believe we actually have 8 wells in and around the county. 1 or 2 were in that southeast part of the county, somewhere around Lake Tainer. That program is still going on. We're still continuing that. We're actually looking at next year potentially moving a well to kind of get a different view in an area of the county that we don't have enough sampling in there. But that information I could probably provide at another meeting with some kind of details or data as to where those are all at, if you'd like.
That would be nice. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Chair?
Yes, Mike.
For both, I guess you and Chase, so if ARPA money became available or other money became available, we'd use it in that respect with the plan. But would that preclude also having the public join in and do some payment of their own for testing?
No, I don't think it would preclude that at all. I think Chase noted that we probably would have I think ultimately I would expect that we would have a kind of a hybrid program that would always rely on volunteer testing. So I think one of the reasons why I bring it up is that Dunn County has not taken any kind of formal process for deciding whether and if we want to allocate any of the ARPA funding that we have. I think we have approximately $8.5 million that we have to spend by 2024. And at some point in time, we'll probably have to do that. And what we've done so far is allocate money towards highway construction, which we may continue to do, but there may be the opportunity to consider other kinds of projects. And if there is, it seems like having this committee be prepared to identify 1 or more projects that would be priorities would be helpful. So we could have that to put into the discussion at that time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Diane.
I have a one-word comment. Yay. I think this is a great idea. And thank you for bringing it up.
Thanks. Well, I'm going to ask for any action today, but if the committee is not opposed to it, we'll just kind of move this idea along. Chase and staff can spend some time considering some options, and move it along and see if we can get agreement on sort of what the scope would be and what the elements might be, so that if the opportunity presents itself, we can get more specific about what we'd like to see. I mean, it could be, I'm not sure what the cost would be. The cost will depend on the scope of the program. And we may want to have several different options for that. Dave.
I think this is a great idea. I think this is, I would definitely be in favor of using some of our ARPA funds for something like this. Doesn't seem to be at any other funding source for something like this. So I would be in favor of this. I have two comments. I would like to see that besides the quality, we would look at quantity of water. From my personal well, the water going down in it. And I think it, myself, not knowing much about what happens with water, but I do know that over the last 10 years, I've had like 14 irrigation wells pop up within 2 miles of me. And I think that may have something to do with my quantity of water in my well. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we could add that. And also something that I brought up before a number of years ago, and I brought it up a few times since. If the county did start something like this, I would like to see us approach the townships as a partner and maybe get each township to have their well sampled at their town hall. That would give at least one in every township a sample. So I'd like us to consider that. I'm just throwing that out there as a thought for Chase to consider. I think this is great, so I'd be in favor of it.
That's a good suggestion, Dave. It also occurs to me that each of our towns has also received a ARPA allocation. I know many of them have no trouble spending it on whatever, but there are some that have kind of wondered about what should we spend this on, and providing something like this is a possibility for them to participate in might be useful.
Yeah, that's a good idea because there's only the formula for lost revenue is going to take up probably the majority of the funds from the townships, but some of the townships are going to have some ARPA money left over. And something like this may be a good idea.
Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? Then what we'll do is we need to charge ahead on this one. Now Chase has got a lot on his plate. So I would just ask you, Chase, to give some consideration to this as you already have, maybe work with staff, and as we have some ideas that are fleshed out, we can bring them back for further discussion in the committee.
Will do.
Okay. Thank you. Next item then is the map survey, I think.
Yes, hello. It's actually a certified survey map. And let me get down here. So this was in your packet. It is a certified survey map that was submitted to the county for review and approval and eventual recording. So Mr. Bob Jensen, the applicant, owns approximately 1.27 acres of land within government. Actually, it's within the town of Tainter. It's currently zoned R1, residential 1. The parcel is currently described by meets and bounds. So it's just a legal description, never been surveyed before. The applicant is proposing to further clarify his description by having a certified survey map prepared and recorded. The CSM is required to meet all the requirements of Chapter 16 of the County Land Division Ordinance. Now, typically CSMs are reviewed by my office. This proposed CSM, however, is crossing the exterior boundary of 2 recorded plats. We have Gifts Edition and Tainer Trail Estates. I'm going to move ahead. So this is a graphic of where we're sitting. So the blue perimeter here is what Mr. Jensen owns. So you can see where the 2 plats come together. The plat on the east is Tainer Trail Estates, kind of in a purple color, and then the greenish color is Gifts Edition. So, and because of that, it requires different or non-traditional approval. So I'll get back to my staff report. So being it's crossing the exterior boundary of 2 recorded plats, it requires the approval of the PR&D committee. Wisconsin Statute 236 reads in part, a certified survey map that crosses the exterior boundary of a recorded plat must be approved in the same manner as a final plat of a subdivision. So the PR&D committee approves all subdivision plats. So therefore the committee is also required to approve the certified survey map. I've reviewed the applicant CSM submittal. The CSM meets all the requirements of Chapter 16 of our land division ordinance, Chapter 87 Wisconsin Administrative Code, and all applicable sections of Chapter 236 of state statutes. The county zoning office has also reviewed the certified survey map and confirmed that it meets all the requirements of Chapter 13 of the comprehensive zoning ordinance. So in the packet, I have a copy of the application, minor subdivision application. Here's a copy of the certified survey map. So the important point I want to stress is no new parcels are being created. It's just a retracement of some existing property that the gentleman owns. Upon approval and recording, a new tax parcel will be created, which will greatly simplify everything going forward. The legal description will just simply be Lot 1, certified survey map number such and such. So I don't have anything further to add on this. Are there any questions from the committee? It is very straightforward. I did invite the applicant and his surveyor, sent them a Zoom invite to this meeting, but stressed to them that I didn't feel it was absolutely necessary if they had other commitments. Again, typically I would be, or Ann and I would be reviewing and approving this map, but in this case, it's a technical formality that I'm bringing it before the committee. So again, Ann and I both are recommending approval of this map. I'll turn it over to you, Tom, if there's any questions.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions?
Yes,
Tom?
sir.
Yeah, Gary.
Why did the Tainer Trails estate go into that lot in the first place? Because it wasn't surveyed before? You got that little triangle kind of a pie shape. That was, why did I go in there in the first place?
Well, the 2 plats are coterminous. They end on the same line. There's no gap or overlap. The 2 plats come together. Over time, I suspect, I would have to do some research, go back. All I know is from the current deed, Mr. Jensen's legal description. I don't have it in front of me, but he owns the east. I believe it's described as the east so many feet of Outlot 1 of Gifts Edition, which fixes the blue line right here where my hand is moving. That fixes his west line. That's described as the east so many feet of Outlot 1. And then he's also got a small meets and bounds triangle here. Let's just go back to the map. Are there any improvements in that area? So no, I don't see any improvements, but possibly him or his predecessor in title wanted a little more frontage along the lake. Maybe it was, he wanted it for a view or something, or maybe he puts his dock there. I'm not sure, but at some point in time years ago, it was decided that they were going to chop off a little triangular piece out of Tainer Trail Estates and add it to Outlot 1 of this Gifts Edition. So the triangle was not created as part of the platting process. It was created by a conveyance that came after the recording of both of those plats. For some reason that's I'm not privy to at this point. So
Thank you for that information.
You're welcome. The other point, I guess, an important point I want to make is right now, the legal description is part of this Outlot one of Gifts Edition. So that's a recorded plat. It is an outlot, and outlots by definition can't be built upon as a unit. Today, you may be wondering why is there a cabin here then on this outlot? Well, that cabin is quite old, I suspect, and it was probably constructed before, ordinances came into place prohibiting buildings on outlots. But right now, if Mr. Jensen wanted to come in and do anything with the portion of his property that's falls within this outlot, it would create problems for him moving forward. So by having the certified survey map done, it removes the outlot designation. His new legal description would be lot 1 again of a certified survey map, and there wouldn't be restrictions as far as building. Of course, he's going to have to comply with setbacks and other issues like that, but that outlot, the negative connotation of the outlot will be removed from his piece of land. So, and that's an important point as well.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Any other questions? Can I have a motion on this to approve the certified survey map, I guess? Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve. Is there further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. So it's approved. Thank you very much.
And Tom, I have the second sheet up here. It'll require your signature on behalf of the committee. So I will just have either Mr. Jensen or his surveyor get a hold of you directly and coordinate a time where you could sign that for them before it gets.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
So where are we at? Is that what we? Announcements? Anyone have any announcements?
Tom, could I?
Yeah.
I don't really have an announcement, but could I follow up on the question that was asked by Chair or County Board Chair Bartlett earlier in the meeting about the status of the remonumentation?
Sure.
I did some research while I was sitting here listening, and I have the executive committee packet and Land Information Council. They're both meeting jointly tomorrow afternoon. And can everybody see this on my screen? Okay, so this is, let me just go back up a few pages here. But this is the draft Dunn County Land Information Plan for 2022 to 2024. It's a large document, but within here is the public land survey system. And I believe this will thoroughly answer the question that was asked by Bartlett. So the number of PLSS corners, so this is reporting information that we have to do as part of this plan. So there's roughly 2,800 corners, PLSS corners in Dunn County. The number of corners capable of being remonumented that have been remonumented. I had mentioned it was above 80%. It's actually 98.5%. It's about 2,759. So when you do the math, where was my sheet of paper here? Bear with me. Well, I had it written down, but there's not that many. I guess I'm at a loss here. I'll grab a calculator. 2,800.
Well, it's about 42.
Yeah, 41 corners roughly that don't have monuments at yet. So then the number that have survey grade coordinates is 2275. So about 82% of the corners in the county that are monumented have survey grade coordinates. So you can see the percentage there. And then the number that have been incorporated into the county digital parcel layer is about 2,000, which is about 71%. So, and again, these corners are really important for a lot of reasons, but one of them is our parcel mapping. If we don't have good public land survey system corners in the ground with accurate positions, then our parcel mapping is not very accurate as well. So I just wanted to throw this out. I was going to send it in a separate email to the committee members, but I thought as long as we're in the meeting, this would be a good time to present this. And again, this is in our Land Information Council, our plan for 2022 to 2024. So thank you for allowing me to add this. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Tom. That's great.
So a
information.
follow-up question
Sure.
of the, 525 left of the survey grade corners, are they in certain townships or are they spread all over the county?
They're spread all over the county. We are trying to work township at a time. Right now, we have town 26 North, range 14 West completed, which is most of O'Galley. O'Galley does spill into 2613 as well. But 2614, 2714, which is Weston, is done. 2814 Lucas is done. We are working in the town of Stanton currently. I want to say we're north of halfway done with Stanton Township, and then periodically throughout the year, I mean, the phone rings and we've got a surveyor working on a project in Sand Creek, and there's issues. So then we drop what we're doing, we run up there. We've got road maintenance. You know, Dave, you get a letter from me every spring. I send out a letter to all the town.
Yeah.
Town
And I let you know what we're doing.
Yes, and I appreciate that. You're one of the few that actually responds and gets back to me, so I appreciate that. But so every year, road construction destroys monuments, so we need to get those corners done. So you know, we have good intentions of working a township at a time, but I guess I'll say it, life happens, things come up, and you know, we need to focus, you know, for the next 2 weeks on a different project. So yes, we're slowly whittling away at this township at a time as time permits.
Well, it seems like you've made a lot of progress since in the years since I've started coming to the executive committee on for the land information meetings, that, you know, over the last 15 years, you've made a lot of progress. So
Yes, we're doing the best with what we have. And the point I want to stress too is just because a corner is done, there's a monument in the ground, we have coordinates on it, the work isn't done. There's always a maintenance of that corner. And I mentioned, you know, not only do the road construction removes monuments, but, you know, farmers remove them, loggers, you know, people with bulldozers, road builders. So these corners are in jeopardy of being disturbed or damaged, and they need a routine maintenance schedule as well. So the work is never going to end in my mind.
but when they're survey grade, that's on a GPS, so they're a lot easier to find then, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. But we can only, you know, so many times the phone will ring, you know, town board chair will call me and say, oh, we ground and pulverized 2 mile stretch of road. Can you come out and reset the corners? Well, if we haven't been there to GPS the monuments to know where they're at, how do we know where to put them back in? I mean, there's witness ties. We have to resort to other means. We have to look at surveys that may have been done to those corners, and it becomes more involved. So yes, I mean, having coordinates on monuments is very helpful because it allows us to put them right back where they were within about 1/4 of an inch. So yes, but there's a lot more work to do.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I apologize for not reading our packet for our meeting tomorrow afternoon. It would have answered my questions.
That's
I
okay.
still probably would have asked some, but I would have answered a lot.
Yeah, and that's Dave, because the packet is like 4,000 pages.
I know, and I'm not through the whole thing yet.
Oh, you've got another day, Dave. So
Well, I'm here until I get done, I guess, today. So thank you.
Okay. Any other announcements? I do have one. You all may have noticed that CRT committee, which Jim and I both serve on, Jim's the chair of, has been working with regional planning to put together a couple of workshops or seminars on broadband planning for mostly rural broadband planning. And it's kind of coming together in a hurry. I apologize for that. But I think a email went out on Friday to all of the county board supervisors and also out to all of the town clerks and I think most of the town board members, inviting folks to a workshop this Friday at 10 o'clock from 10 to noon. When regional planning, Chris Strait in particular, is going to have put together I think a pretty interesting presentation on where we're at with broadband, what the recent expansion grants have done, what the maps look like, what some of the options for funding going forward are, and what some of the, it's both from the using state funds and ARPA funds, but also the recent infrastructure bill, which is going to be funneling broadband funds through different agencies, in particular USDA agencies. So we'll have a pretty good overview of that and some information about how well we're doing, how well the ISPs are covering the area, and have a chance to answer some questions and give people a sense of what to think about as far as where to go from here. And then in January, the hope is to pull together maybe a smaller meeting, or a meeting that would more focus on sort of discussing some strategies that towns and counties, particularly the county, might use, and how can we make the most of the money we have and build the biggest partnerships and serve the most people. So those two things are coming up, and in a lot of ways they're related to both CRT and PR&D. So if you could check your email, if you got one on Friday, it came from Mr. Miller. I'm going to try and make sure that everyone gets at least one more reminder of it. You have to register. And as Jim pointed out to me yesterday, the registration is not, and Dave also, the registration is not entirely clear in some places. So you have to register. There's a place you click to register, and then they will send you out everyone who's registered will get a notice before the meeting, probably Friday morning, as to what the link to the Zoom is. So anybody have any questions about that? Otherwise, look for your email.
Tom, I just want to thank you for making that announcement and clear to everybody. And I think it is very important. So thank you, Chairman Quinn, for that announcement.
Thanks, Jim. Any other items?
Mr. Quinn,
Yep.
is this going to be our last meeting in December or?
I was just going to ask that question, Gary. So we have another meeting, regular meeting is scheduled for the 28th, I think. But why don't we see if there's not anything urgent that's on that agenda that can't be put off, we probably will cancel it. But let's give it a little bit of time to see whether anything comes up. Otherwise, we'll just cancel it, Gary. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. If we don't see each other, have a good holiday.